Hello and welcome to All Villa, No Villa, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team most of the time when we can score goals. Me and George, we are live. As ever, please remember to subscribe to the show. Well, Villa drew 0-0 with Everton at the catchily titled Hill Dickinson Stadium on Saturday. More on that in a sec. But first, George, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Villa at the moment are like me at the end of school prom with my date. Just a complete, they're just incapable of scoring. Incapable of scoring. They just cannot do it. And it's getting me down, Frankie. It's getting me down. Yeah, it's been a tough few weeks being a Villa fan. I just want to see a goal. At the moment, let's just keep it basic, keep it simple. Just put the ball in the net. Let's work from there. But yeah, it's been a tough old start, and it's definitely clouded my enjoyment of other things, shall we say?
Absolutely. I was chatting to some London Lions yesterday and we were joking. It was like gallows humor in a way. It was like we were joking about how, the life of Riley that used to play over goal of the month. We were like, we'll have like the near miss of the month competition.
Yeah.
I've been telling my grandkids about, where were you when Emi Buendia had that volley that ricocheted off an Everton defender.
That's right. Yeah.
It's that bad. And what was it? Yeah, and then Sav as well, who I saw from London Lions as well. He said to me, "I should pledge to keep growing my hair like that United fan until Villa score a goal."
Yeah, that's right.
I'll end up looking like Frank Gallagher
since Aston Villa scored a league goal.
Yeah, I'll go from Frankie Maguire to Frank Gallagher from Shameless probably by the end of that.
Yeah.
An absolute state. So yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, what did you make of the 0-0?
It was a tough watch, as all league games for Villa have been so far this season. It's been really, really difficult to watch. And I think, as I said before we started recording, I said if you looked at a point away at a resurgent Everton and their new stadium, given how well they've started the season, their squad looks so much stronger now, you would say, you know what, that's not a bad result. But it's just the performance. We're just looking so incredibly toothless, and once again we're coming out of the game saying we're the second best team in it, and it's really hard to kind of put your finger on why that is. I mean, we talked about how we had a fairly solid pre-season. Ollie Watkins, we were sort of making excuses for him, saying, well, last time out when he was sort of struggling, it was because he was at the Euros and was probably quite tired after not having much of a pre-season. This summer he's kind of got no excuse really. He had a great pre-season, bagged a load of goals, and I know it's not all to do with him. He has to have the service, which he's been lacking quite significantly so far this season. But it's just been very difficult to watch, and in terms of a spectacle, in terms of what we've seen from Villa in the past 2 or 3 seasons now under Emery, it's just not happening, and it's really difficult to kind of understand what that is, whether it's a psychological thing, whether it's all the kind of off-field issues we've had in terms of our inability to spend, the fact we've had to sell players like Jacob Ramsey, which clearly has unsettled some of the players given their comments on social media. Like, has that been a reason why you've been underperforming so far? I don't know. It's really hard to put your finger on it. I don't know how kind of you feel about it and the reasons behind our lackluster start to the season. It's really hard to know, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, like, it feels like the frustrations of the summer have kind of bled into the players, and maybe there's some residual frustration from the United game at the end of last season, maybe some annoyance at the goal that was disallowed. Losing Ramsey, as you mentioned, that seems to have caused some issues on social media. Well, at least the players have said things on social media that makes you feel like something's off. But it's I think I actually feel like Villa will be fine. I'm not like, it's not panic stations or anything. I think we will be fine. I think we'll get our act together. I think it's going to take time. And I think ideally a lot of the players we signed on transfer deadline day would have been there a month before to settle in and get used to what we were going to be. And I think that, like, we're looking for somebody to take control in that final third and direct traffic in a way. And at the moment, no one seems capable or willing to do that. Whereas I feel like Harvey Elliott, I'm hoping, will be that player. And, look, I mean, the Everton game, I think the only positives were Emi Martinez, kept us in it really with a couple of saves. Everton, though, I know they had the 2 big chances really, but they didn't. there weren't loads of chances. I know they had a lot of attempts, but it wasn't like I really felt really nervous much of the time. And there was actually still some good build-up play from Villa until it got towards the final third, and it just keeps on breaking down. And I think that maybe fullbacks wise, we're asking a lot of our fullbacks to be attacking fulcrums, and it feels like Dean and Cash just aren't it. But I think I think seeing Gesson come in the second half, I think there were one or two hints about what he might be on that right hand side. He might be that skillful, creative fulcrum who's quite physical and can hold the ball. And actually, there were one or two glimmers of light from him that he might grow into that role. Elliot, I'm hoping, will be that player directs traffic. But yeah, it's not looking good. I see George has gone, but I'll continue talking for a sec. But yeah, it's not looking good for that final third at the moment. Rodgers particularly is looking really, really out of form, which is quite disappointing. Just got you back there, George. Yeah, Rodgers is looking really out of form at the moment. But
Wi-Fi is misfiring like Aston Villa at the moment. I think it's catching.
yeah.
It's definitely catching.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you think, George, in that final third? What is it like? What's not quite clicking?
Oh man, this is the $1 million question, isn't it? It's as I said, it's really hard to put your finger on it. It's difficult because we saw Rodgers for England doing exactly what we'd like him to do with Villa, being that kind of like central attacking creative force, and providing assists for wingers and for attackers and whatever. But maybe it's a tactical shift from Emery that he needs to readdress. I'm not sure. I mean, last year obviously we were conceding a lot of goals, and this year it's the exact opposite. It's like we're defensively very solid, but it's now the other end of it. Yeah. Good point. But okay, conceded a goal away against Brentford, and then 2-0 nils obviously against Everton and Newcastle. Defensively has been okay, but yeah, we just haven't managed to kind of do things on the other end. And you just hope that when Sancho is fit and firing and up and raring to go, and Elliot gets a few more minutes to impress, then that will galvanize the team and they can have a bit of an impact on how we play. But it's maybe it just takes time. It just takes time, and it's tough to watch and to go through. I think particularly because expectations are so high and have been for a couple of years now, that we go into games thinking we're going to win or take points or perform better than we have done, and so when it doesn't work out, and it doesn't work out for game after game after game like it has at the start of this season, you're thinking, well, what is it? What can be what is the problem here? But as I said, it's in a weird way, it's good that we've got. I feel like it is good that we've got a game coming up pretty quickly against Brentford, that we can just again get some more minutes in the legs of the likes of Harvey Elliott, and maybe Jadon Sancho will make his first appearance, and just start kind of like getting a bit of confidence, trying to get a bit of confidence into the players and getting them used to the way we're playing now. That's the only thing I think we can do. Just got to play our way through it until it works. I don't know.
Yeah, I think my theory on it in what I'm hoping happens is that because Villa brought in Harvey Elliott, who I think is going to be a very crucial player for us on the deadline day, Jadon Sancho as well as a player who didn't have a preseason. Lindelof was a backup right centre back / apparently centre midfielder.
Yeah,
I think what I'm going to say in my head is that I think it's going to take until mid to late October for Villa to find any kind of rhythm and get that form, and maybe then with that Thursday thing, maybe with a decent. I mean, those players start to work out where they all fit and how they work together. Like Gesson as well starts to fit in.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to click. Because then, hopefully Onana and Kamara are back. Hopefully Tielemans is back. Because to have all our centre midfielders out is just absolutely crazy given how much depth we actually have there. So I'm hoping that is the case and that this isn't representative of something a little bit more problematic. I think maybe as well, like we're not getting the ball from back to front particularly rapidly. I wonder if not
No.
Torres starting is a problem in that sense, because Torres, so much of our best football in the last 3 years under Unai Emery has come about when Torres has been making those balls that cut through the midfield into the forward line.
Mm.
And but again, I think that those balls into a number 10 at the moment with Rodgers, the ball just bounces off him all the time.
Yeah.
He's not performing well, and I'm hoping that if Elliott goes into that 10 role, he can be that player to hold the ball up and link players in, because at the moment it's just not happening for Rodgers. I think it will. I think it will come for him, but it just looks like a player who, at the moment, maybe played a lot of football last season, a lot of it. Maybe is having a bit of a second season lull, and there's a lot of expectation from him to always do something, and that is tiring. And is therefore, it's on him to work his way out of that. I think he will. It's just, sometimes players go through bad patches, and he's going through one. But I think he'll come back. But I think one thing I want to say as well, George. I mean, do you have any positives from the game? I know it's hard to feel any at the moment, but is there anything you take from it that's positive?
I suppose, as we've said, I think it's good that we've seen Elliott make his debut. As you say, I think going forward, I hope he has a really integral role in what we do and galvanizing the squad and being a critical focal point for us in an offensive sense. So for him to make his debut is it's always good to see. I thought Bogard played really well. He
like
just did his
Bogard.
job very, very, very solidly, and we've talked about how useful it is to have a player who can play in multiple positions the way that he can. And we've talked as well previously about how Bogard, I think, in terms of his best position that I've seen him play, and I think you agree, it is that kind of holding defensive midfield role.
Yeah.
The only issue is that, as we've said before as well, that area of the pitch is stacked with players, so it's really hard for him to break into that area of the pitch. But every time I've seen him play there, we've mentioned the Arsenal game last season, he's done really well, and I think he did his job like really well. And then obviously Martinez, after all the kind of the circus around transfer deadline day, for him to come back after the international break and put in that kind of performance is really special. And obviously Unai Emery referenced that in his post-match comments. It's just unfortunate that we talk about a goalkeeper being essentially our man of the match. It's kind of you want it to be the forward players like Watkins and Rodgers and stuff, which it hasn't obviously been for a few weeks now. So and again, as I say, on paper, a draw away at Everton is not bad. I would have probably taken that before the game, but I just would have wanted to see a better performance, because we haven't had one so far this season where we can reflect and think, you know what, okay, maybe we've dropped points here or even lost a game, but we played really well. There's been good spells where we've showed our dominance, and maybe apart from a few minutes against Brentford away in the second half, we've shown a little bits here and there in certain games, but it just hasn't, on the balance of the 90 minutes, I don't think in any game really we've performed as well as we need to. So that's a worry. But yeah, it's always difficult to pick out positives when you've played so badly or you feel like you played quite poorly. But yeah, I suppose those would be the ones you'd like look at and think, okay, well, there's some positives you can pull out.
Yeah, I think Bogard,
and Grealish didn't score.
Yeah, oh God, he nearly did, didn't he? Wow, and nearly got the assist to win it as well. But yeah, I think Bogard's an interesting one. Like, I think we're overdue a youth team player properly breaking through, given the absolute quality of our youth system. And Bogard he looks an intelligent player. Emery clearly values that, because he clearly plays in different roles. He must think he's a quick learner. I think watching him yesterday, his positioning was quite intelligent, particularly in the second half. Yes, there's one or two like little raw bits of him, but I think he's the type of player who looks like someone who, if he gets a run of 5-6 games, we might really start to value him. He's just a very he's a very valuable squad player as well. And seeing that neither Onana and Kamara can seemingly ever stay fit, to have a player like him just there who can go into centre back and play as a CDM as well, that's very handy to have. Actually, and we were very fortunate to have him around yesterday, given the fact so many of our midfielders are injured now. But yeah,
were you surprised by the lineup? I mean, something that sort of crept into my mind seeing that starting 11 was, have we gone back a bit? I mean, when Dia starting a game in the Premier League for us, and then having that back four, which is basically a Smith Gerrard back four.
Yeah.
It seems strange that we're still turning to these players that a lot of us feel like we're probably trying to move away from in some way, but they're still cemented there in that starting 11.
Yeah, it's that is a slight worry. I mean, look, I think I said in pre-season that continuity would be a good thing. In some ways, it should be, but then on the flip side of that, you have to look what happened with Tottenham. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Tottenham, when they got the Champions League final, they didn't sign anyone and they stagnated the next season. I mean, Villa at least have signed a couple of players, which I think will eventually show good. But I think, seeing that starting lineup yesterday, and it did feel a little bit like, McGinn on the right again, Buendia starting in the centre. I thought maybe throw Harvey Elliott just straight in, Rodgers on the left, and it feels like they're all drifting inside, and therefore to provide the width, they're relying on the fullbacks, and the fullbacks just aren't good enough attacking wise in the final third. So it's like it feels like there's just not a lot of cohesion in where all players are moving into. And Watkins is therefore just looking lost because balls just aren't getting to him or getting near him. And then, whereas I think when Gesson came on, it looked a little bit better. And I think when Elliott gets into that number 10 role, hopefully we start to link play up better. But it also feels like maybe it's time to give Maatsen a run in the team at left back. If we're gonna, if that's what's going to be our width, then just get Maatsen in and get him used to that role, because we keep taking him out of the team. So how's he supposed to build like form and momentum when we keep doing that? Although it's understandable given how Dean is a very solid player as well. But yeah, attacking wise, it feels like we're relying a lot on two fullbacks who aren't like getting into that final third. It's just not their strong suit. And so, I mean, but it also does feel a bit like it shows how difficult this summer's been, where it feels like there's probably was time to refresh the squad a bit. When you've got 3 years of the same players listening to the same intense coach every day, that just naturally reaches its natural point of being quite tired. Alex Ferguson used to refresh his squad all the time, and it was in quite a similar fashion, 3-year, 4-year cycles. And with Emery, he needs fresh blood to work with. Fortunately, we did get some of that towards the end of the transfer window. We've got it in Evan Gesson, but it does feel a little bit like there's just one or two areas of the squad you look at and you think like, it's time to freshen it up. But it is what it is. We couldn't do much really given the UEFA sanctions we were under. It's just we're in just a very difficult spot this summer, and hopefully the squad worked through it. Hopefully, but I mean, how did you feel seeing it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's you have to try and be positive, and you have to try and say, well, it's the start of the season, and inevitably there are some teams that just take a bit of time to figure things out, whether it just be kind of like finding the right personnel in certain positions, and because of the summer we had was so problematic, I think that has hindered us as we've been saying at the start of the show. The fact like kind of players have obviously been very dissatisfied with certain players leaving and dissatisfied with how we've been unable to make the changes or sign the players that we want to sign. We're working in a very, very difficult market, and that I guess psychologically that perhaps does have an effect on the management, on the squad, on the club more broadly, and sometimes to get over that, you just need to kind of like get through those initial games where you're struggling, and then things kind of click into gear. At least that's what I'm kind of hoping. And as you say, once we start playing in Europe and getting into the rhythm of playing those kind of weekend then weekday games like we did last year, maybe that routine will help again. And getting players back fit as well, key players like Kamara and Onana fit as well will hopefully help too. So yeah, it's just we need a goal. Definitely that we need a goal as a starting off point. And then we just need a win. I think once we get those things in the bag, I'm hopeful that we can get back on track. The frustrating thing slightly is that if you looked at the fixtures at the start of the season, you would have said, well, actually, that's a good start to the season on paper, and we're sort of bleeding through these games now against teams that you'd think we should be beating, and we're not, and struggling.
Yeah.
And then around the corner, we've got teams which are obviously going to be more of a challenge. So that's a bit of a concern too. But listen, you can't choose where you get your points from, and we are and have proven that we are a match for most teams in the league. Our league finishes the past 2 or 3 seasons show that we can beat anyone on our day, but we just need to get a day where we can beat someone.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, that is true. The harder games, Liverpool, Tottenham, City, they're all coming a bit later. And oh God, geez, don't even think about that. But I just wanted to show this quote from Unai Emery that Birmingham Live reported, John Townley, at the post-match news conference, where he said, it's something we have to address. Unai Emery said it's something we have to address tactically. He said it's not just about the striker, winger, or defensive midfielder. We have to improve the system to help our attacking players get into positions to score.
Agreed.
He himself clearly is recognizing that something is not right. Tactically, he's taking responsibility for that and saying that it's his responsibility to figure out a way to get the players into the right positions to do something. So, hopefully these players can fit in, because I dare say there's a lot of people listening to this or watching it who are, really a lot more worried than we are, and thinking we're sleeping on it a bit. But it is what it is for now, and hopefully we can come back quickly. But George, I think let's step into the pressure cooker here at All Villa HQ. It's a place where the sweat beads roll down your forehead. It's time for the spicy question. And Josh,
okay,
should we stick with Ollie Watkins up front?
Oh wow, okay. Hitting me with all the spice. You've raided the spice cabinet and you're chucking paprika in my eyes.
I've got you lying down like a Dexter TV show. I've put in the chili on you, sriracha sauce, all that.
That's right. I'm being fully seasoned here today. It's frustrating. I mean, he's killing my FPL team, Frankie. I've persisted with him in my FPL team week after week after week, and I think this is the week where he, gets an assist, gets a goal. No, still gets 2 points every single week, killing my FPL team. But I mean, first of all, we've kind of really got nobody else. This was kind of the whole point, wasn't it? That we thought, Watkins, without having a main rival in the squad like a Danny Ings or a John Duran would sort of help him in his goal scoring. But so far that hasn't proven to be the case this season, which is a disappointment to say the least. I know we've got kind of Marlon in the wings as someone who could potentially come in and play up top, but he's not kind of, you're out and out striker, I suppose. But I think as I said before, I don't think it's his fault, and that's what Emery is saying as well in that speech you brought up. It's like it's not a single player's fault. It's clearly there's something tactically which isn't quite working, and he's not getting the supply that he needs. He's just sort of like wandering around kind of aimlessly for 90 minutes a match and not relying on scraps and not getting what he needs as a striker. So yeah, I think we do have to persist with him for sure. Absolutely. He's, we fought off a bit of competition for him in the summer. And clearly he's our number 9. He's not literally our number 9, but he's our main man to score the goals, and we have to persist with it. I think. I mean, again, a striker is judged on the goals that they score or the goals that they don't score. So if it gets to the point where it just becomes ludicrous, the fact that he's still in that starting 11, and we've got to October, or and he's still not scoring goals, you're thinking, okay, maybe we can reassess this. But I think at this stage, it's still too early in the season to be thinking about his position. And as I say, it's more of a team tactical issue, I think, rather than him as an individual player. Yeah. I think you might feel differently, but that's the way I watch the games. I just think he's just not getting what he needs as a striker to score the goals.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's just. I think it leans into what Unai Emery said. That structurally, something's not quite right, and certain players probably aren't doing the right things in the role that they've been given. There was one I didn't mention it actually, but there was one example in that game yesterday where Luca Dean received the ball just beyond the halfway line, and Morgan Rogers was on the left, and Rogers just sort of stood still centrally, and it was kind of like, well, so we're expecting Luca Dean to either bomb from the halfway line all the way up to the final third and beat his man, or cut back, instead of Rogers moving across to the byline, getting the ball up to him, and then the space in the middle then created. I don't know. That to me, that there wasn't like a. It's not going to be in highlights. It's going to be hard to find that clip, but that to me just was a good example of like how something feels off about our movement up top at the moment, and that it feels to me like the options aren't there for the players at the back of midfield to really find in the final third. And so that's what Emery probably is referring to, in his thing. But I think with Watkins, I think that my only worry with Watkins, I don't know how you feel about it, is that last season, John Duran was there for the first half of the season, then Marcus Rashford. So if there were spells when Watkins wasn't performing, at least you had those players to fall back on. Mm-hmm. This season, it feels a bit like if Watkins isn't performing, we don't really have the talent back up to do what he can do, really. I mean, does that worry you at all?
That's absolutely. I think that's a very fair comment. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I think we were saying last season, one of the reasons why Watkins wasn't performing was because of that problem, the fact that he felt that there was pressure on his back, and he'd get hooked off after 60 minutes for somebody else to try and score a goal. And obviously at the start of last season, that was exactly what was happening. Watkins would be struggling, and you'd stick on Duran, and he'd score a screamer, and that would sort of like get us through those games. But yeah, obviously there's when that happens with Watkins now, we look at the bench, and it's difficult to see who comes on to make that difference. I mean, we've talked a lot about how Marlon isn't getting game time for whatever reason. I mean, the fact is he was brought into the starting 11 to face Palace and did pretty much, didn't do much in that game. So it's hard if you're given the opportunity, and if you don't take the chances to kind of get into the starting 11 again. But yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. That really prolific season with Watkins, when he scored, all those goals, we didn't really. It was the same situation. We didn't really have. We got rid of Ings, and we didn't really have anybody else who would come in, and we were fine. It didn't really seem to matter. Whereas, at the start of this season, it feels slightly different. I mean, okay, Watkins is a little bit older, but he's not. He's not geriatric, is he? He still should be a fit and firing Premier League striker. Did some of the speculation about his future over the summer affect him? I don't know. Maybe it's hard, but as I said, over pre-season, as I mentioned, he looked great. He looked sharp. He was scoring. He looked, as fit as anything. But at the moment, it's not working in the league. But as I said, I think it's more as a structural thing. I think once Emery has a look at where we can improve things in that area of the pitch, we know when Watkins can get into the right positions. We know that how he can, score the goals that he has done numerous times for us. If we start to get the players around him, as you mentioned, Rogers has been off. He hasn't had the support from the fullbacks in terms of Digne and Cash. But if we can get those guys doing their job properly, I think Watkins will ultimately be the beneficiary.
Yeah, for sure. Well, George, let's get to the comments. There's been a fair few come through. Please do like, subscribe, share. Can't express enough how much the subs really help on audio and on YouTube. Black Country Villain, good evening, gents. We'll be fine. Good to see you, mate. Always say nice things on here. Patrick Reed, continue playing McGinn out wide is ridiculous. Continue playing Rogers when he's clearly struggling. Not giving new signings or in the team, all issues Emery needs to address quickly. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the sooner we can get Sancho and Elliot up and running and buying into what Emery wants them to do, the better. As soon as we can get them into the team and proving their qualities, because they've got points to prove. Obviously, Elliot needs to be at a club that will play him week in, week out. Hopefully, that can be us, and we can make the most of him as a player, because we know how talented. We've seen it. Liverpool fans seem quite gutted that he's gone. Clearly he's a talented player. He just needs to be at a team where he'll play, which hopefully will be us. And with Sancho, he's still got a point to prove. We know his qualities at Dortmund, and he showed glimpses of it at Chelsea. But again, he needs to be playing week in, week out at a decent club. Again, hopefully that's us, and they can be the catalyst to us scoring and winning games again.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to Villa's sort of golden season, when we finished fourth, and you had Leon Bailey outright working in tandem with Moussa Diaby, and you think now it's John McGinn outright, it's not really comparable, is it? Bailey was a winger, and John McGinn is not a winger. So yeah, Marine Boy, it's strange that Rodgers had a great game for England midweek. It is interesting. Could you say that he has runners around him? Was Serbia just not as good an opposition as, given the fact that England was so much better than Serbia, whereas Villa just aren't that much better comparably to Everton in their present form? Is that really what happened? And interesting. It is interesting though. Like Rodgers couldn't make a bloody pass yesterday.
Weird, yeah, but I think there's definitely something to be said by the fact that like around him for England, he had like Madueke and players like that who obviously have, they're more traditional wingers than McGinn. Do you know what I mean? I think there is something to be said about that. With Rodgers' assist for I think it was Madueke's goal. Madueke was already off and he was speeding into the box and Rodgers sort of did that little deft flick to him and it worked. And yeah, McGinn's not that type of player, is he? So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I agree. It's really difficult. I mean, Rodgers clearly has an eye on playing at the World Cup and making that World Cup squad in a World Cup year. But if you want to make that squad, you've got to perform for your club. Fundamentally, you're not going to get called in the England team if you're not doing it for your club. So
yeah. I'll just get one or two more comments up. Danny, playing like a team that is scared and frightened, not hoping to concede and reluctant to attack. What happened to that flair we had last season? A lot is on Emery. Seeing a lot of comments about Emery at the moment, which is interesting. I would say that I think that the tone was set against Newcastle. I think the way we set up in that game and the way we played was surprisingly conservative, and I wasn't sure why we did that. Again, Unai will have his reasons. He knows a lot more about football than I will ever know in my entire life. But it's kind of interesting that it's continued, that it's that sort of defensive, stodgy play that we're doing. It's sort of continued against Everton as well. It's I'm interested to know exactly if there's a reason for it. Whether it's something they want to take into Europe, I don't know, but we'll see. Because they have lost George again there. So I'll continue just through a couple of comments. Robert Boyle, a team like Villa had to improve its squad a lot. Otherwise, they were always going to go backwards. Yeah, you could argue that a lot of this squad being the same as it has been for the last, 3 years, that is a bit of a risk of stagnation. I'd like to think there's enough quality in there, though, that they can just carry on and get through it. Because if you look at that squad, when it's all fit, it's a really strong squad. Just with one or two areas that you think I wouldn't mind it being improved, particularly at right back primarily. He's not had the best start to the season, Cash, although you could argue he did do well against Grealish for large portions of the game yesterday. But just it's sort of, I think it's the way we're relying on him to be an attacking fulcrum down that right. It just isn't. It's just not really working for him, is it? Let's just have a quick look here. 1956 villain. Good to see you again, mate. Marlon isn't getting time because he's not good enough for mistake signing. Decent chunk of money on him, and by some reports I've seen, big wages. I think so far it's not been a great signing, given the fact that he doesn't seem to play loads. It feels like he's primarily a squad player. I think it's not really happened, does it? I mean, he's on the bench all the time, and you'd be hoping for the kind of outlay we did that he'd be a starter, really. But he has played well for us though at times. Particularly when he's gone up front, like that hustle bustle he shows in the final third is really strong. So yeah, I rate him. I do rate him. I just think he's not. It is a bit of a question mark. The fact that we're now, in September, we're signing mid-January, and he's still not really featuring loads. Yeah. Otherwise, Black Country Villain. Trust with Unai will improve. We're a great team and a great squad. UTV. Yeah, we are. We are a great team, great squad, and you just have to have faith in Unai. I mean, Unai is a fantastic manager. He's transformed this club. Yes, it's not always going to. Football doesn't always go in a single. If you look at a graph, it doesn't always just go up. All teams and all managers have their down moments, and it's how you work your way through that, and that's what separates the best coaches and the best managers from the rest, is that they can find a way out of it. And I think Unai generally will. Setu Stain won. There were subtle and brief signs in the Everton game, early part of the second half, definitely. Yes, I'd agree. I think there were some signs that Villa could see back. George, your Wi-Fi really is.
But for how long, Frankie? For how long? That is the question.
The golden question, yeah. It is. Your Wi-Fi, as you said earlier, is misfiring like Villa's front line at the moment. But Setu Stain one just said that there were subtle and brief signs in the Everton game, the early part of the second half. Definitely, I'd agree. I think there were the one or two hints of things that might be to come from Gesson on the right and Elliott, and I think that there were times when we were actually the slightly more dominant team against Everton and playing through them quite well. It was just getting the ball into that final third just wasn't really happening very particularly. But I think it's going to come together for Villa. It's too strong a squad for it not to, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think obviously the longer it goes without a goal is that I think that at the moment that feels like the big psychological issue. I think it's the first time we've failed to score in the open. I mean, I know this. It's the first time we failed to score in the opening 4 league games of any season. The only team in the top 4 divisions not to score this season.
Top 7.
Our worst Premier League start since 97-98. Yeah. So top 7. Oh shit. Oh, sorry. I mean, yeah, no, that's not good. But yeah, it's. I mean, all the stats are not good. But I think fundamentally, it starts with a goal. With a goal, you can get a win, and with a win, you can get more wins. that's something Brian Clough. That's surely something he would say. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Throw all your medals away, like Cloughie would say. You won that by cheating. Love Clough. Love that film as well, The Damned United. Kevin James as well. At least you could say Villa fought to keep that clean sheet. Small victories there. Yeah, I mean, look. Yeah, another clean sheet. I mean, we can at least say that, I suppose. Thank God. And just seeing Emi Martinez there, when you see his physical presence in goal compared to Bezot's against Palace, it's like you really see that's what separates the top keepers, isn't it? You see Donnarumma today for City as well. That it's just that physical presence is such a big difference. But yeah, look, I mean, hopefully we bounce back. But George, I think we should probably leave it there. So George, thank you, everybody, for listening. I've been your host, Frankie Maguire, and I'll catch you soon, George.
Yes, I'm off to take a spanner to this to my Wi-Fi to get it fixed, because it's been as I said, it's been struggling. But like Unai Emery with his tactical tweaks, I'll be making tweaks to my router, and between us, we'll get things firing again for next time.
For sure. Thank you very much, George, and that's it from me. Up the mighty Villa.